Well, good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Senator Duckworth and I are very pleased to have you here as we unveil our Minnesota Student Borrowers Bill of Rights proposal. I don't think it'll be a surprise to anyone that the student loan crisis in the United States is mammoth. Total student loan debt has surpassed credit card debt to become the second largest class of debt in the United States, with students owing a stunning $1.7 trillion. Here in Minnesota, there are over 775,000 student borrowers holding some $27 billion in debt. I mean, these numbers are so big, they're hard to put into perspective. But since it's budget forecast week, I thought I'd point out the state operates on about a $50 billion general fund budget every 2 years. So another way of looking at this is that students in Minnesota owe enough money to operate the state of Minnesota's general fund for one whole year. The problem is also escalating rapidly. Student debt increased by 127% between 2007 and 2017. It's also a statewide problem. 51% of millennials in greater Minnesota report owing student debt, and a report from the Federal Reserve Bank identified student debt as a primary reason why young people are choosing to move from rural communities into the cities. Student loan programs are endlessly complex. There's a confusing labyrinth of repayment plans, forbearance options, refinancing opportunities. If a borrower makes even the slightest misstep, they can watch their debt balloon out of control and see themselves suddenly become ineligible for forgiveness programs that they may have planned their entire education around. Minnesota law is stunningly inadequate at protecting student borrowers from even the most basic bad behavior by their private companies that service their debt. And that's why Senator Duckworth and I are introducing a Student Borrowers Bill of Rights designed to help ensure that our students aren't misled or maltreated by their student loan servicers. We believe that this bill will help avoid catastrophic situations like the one that's developed around Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. That federal program, which has been in place since 2007, promises borrowers that if they work for a nonprofit or public service setting for 10 years, the federal government will forgive the balance of their loan. But when the first batch of borrowers applied for forgiveness, the federal government rejected over 95% of applications. Thousands of applicants that have been placed by the servicers in the wrong payment plan to be eligible for the program, or engaged in a refinance that made themselves ineligible, or hadn't gotten their employment certified. 10 years and thousands of dollars of payments, all for naught. In a moment, you'll hear from those borrowers with similar stories about how the student loan industry has impacted their lives. But first, I want to introduce Senator Zach Duckworth, the Senate author of the bill. Senator Duckworth.
Well, thank you, sir. Representative Stephenson, it's an absolute honor to be here and to partner with you on this. I greatly appreciate it. I think hearing those stories is going to be far more important and critical than anything I have to say, to be honest with you. So I'll be very short and very brief, but I would echo what you said in terms of how complicated the process is. I happen to work in an industry in which people buy and sell homes on a regular basis. And if I can help somebody buy or sell a house and obtain a loan, and it's much less complicated, much easier, and has way more protections for the borrower in place, and we don't have that sort of thing for students or young folks who are looking to educate themselves and finance that education, well, then that's a problem we have to address. So I'm happy to tackle this with you. I appreciate your partnership, and with that, I will gladly turn it over to Ms. Destiny Belmont.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Destiny Belmont. I'm a school psychologist with Benton Stearns Education District, which is a special education cooperative in central Minnesota serving 6 school districts. There's an extreme shortage of school psychologists in Minnesota, especially in greater Minnesota schools. I went to graduate school at Minnesota State University Moorhead for 3 years to obtain my master's and specialist degrees in school psychology. This program is 4 years of graduate studies condensed into 3, so all students were strongly encouraged to not have jobs during enrollment. My journey to become a school psychologist was an expensive and arduous process. However, I had high hopes that I was going to make a difference in the lives of children and their families, and it would all be worth the effort. The cost of tuition was concerning, but I was made aware of the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program to ease my mind. I graduated in the spring of 2008 with $50,721.95 in student loans. I started making payments 6 months later. I vividly remember seeing only $1.83 of my first payment go towards my principal. For more than 10 years, my loan servicer put me in different payment plans, even though most of the time I never requested the changes. And for many of those payments, $0 went towards my principal. This caused me great stress and anguish. as the financial burden never seemed to decrease. On April 5th, 2019, I applied for public service loan forgiveness for the first time. According to my records, I had made 120 payments and was finally eligible. 2 months later, I was denied. They told me I wasn't on the correct payment plan and I had only made 21 qualifying payments. I would not be eligible for another 8 years. I felt defeated. That same month, my loan was transferred and split between 2 different loans. The total, $51,056.72. This was more than $300 above what I had originally borrowed and had been paying on for over the past decade. I applied for student loan forgiveness 5 more times. I finally got into contact with a group of knowledgeable people who knew about these loan forgiveness programs and was given the right questions to ask of the customer service representatives. On August 19th, 2020, I was finally granted full forgiveness of my student loans. I took out $50,721.95 in student loans. I paid a total of $36,551.45, and I had $49,572.83 forgiven. Therefore, only $1,149.12 was applied towards my principal over the course of almost 12 years. This isn't right. Loan servicers are taking advantage of Minnesotans. Many who, like myself, are going into education, healthcare, and other public services. It's time to regulate student loan servicers and represent the interests of borrowers, not corporations. Thank you. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Sarah Rother.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Rother. I've been a teacher in the Chaska School District for 20 years. I've invested a lot in my own professional practice. My educational journey, the opportunities as created, are a critical part of my teaching. Unfortunately, my education came with a hefty price tag, a price I could only pay with loans. Currently, I have over $50,000 in student loan debt. I am the mother of 2 amazing daughters who are 9 and 5. They are the ones who motivated my husband, Travis, and I to get our financial affairs in order. We want them to grow up with a healthy relationship with money. I looked for information about loan forgiveness, but there's little out there. So I attended a training that my district and my union co-sponsored and began to apply for public service loan forgiveness. I applied for consolidation and an income-driven repayment plan. But then I got the first of many confusing, inaccurate communications back from Navient about my application. The first estimate that my loan servicer gave me showed an initial payment of $2,875. I was shocked, but I thought, well, I can make that one payment work. Then I looked at the fine print. Initial payment did not mean a one-time only first-time payment. It was what they expected me to pay every month. On the same page, they also showed a maximum payment of $500 a month. I felt like I was being misled. I was frustrated. I was angry. This is exactly what I did not want my daughters to see on my face: financial stress and worry. I want them to see education as a gateway to their future, not as shackles of insurmountable debt. After weeks of back and forth, I found out that I must pay $750 a month, almost twice what I was already paying, in order to use the loan forgiveness that is available to me. I believe there are ways to lower our payments, but my loan servicer is not helping me to do that. Student loan borrowers like me need someone on our side to protect us from abuses by loan servicers. We need someone with the power of the state to examine practices by companies that don't have my interests at heart and hold those companies to a higher standard. Thank you. And now we'd like to open it up to questions from the press.
If anyone has a question, they can unmute themselves or raise their hand. They can also drop it in the chat. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions in the chat. We'll give everybody a few more seconds here to see if they have a question. Okay, so Shannon from the Senate asks, so what would the Bill of Rights do?
Well, the Bill of Rights would try to several protections into law to make sure that student loan servicers act the way that we expect them to, that they not misapply payments or mislead borrowers. I think you heard Destiny talk about how her servicer moved her onto different payment plans without her knowledge. I mean, that kind of thing should not be happening. It could have real consequences, as you heard her talk about how that impacted her student loan forgiveness eligibility. So it's really just sort of the basics of things that we expect from companies operating in Minnesota.
If I may add to that, there are certain things when a lender is working with the consumer that they should be doing or a way in which they should be operating. Things like transparency, operating on good faith on behalf of the consumer are things that really should be at the forefront of the decision-making process, the loan process, the servicing process. And, you know, there's a term out there, predatory lending. Not saying that all service providers are like this, but obviously I think it's well known that they do exist and they're out there. And we've got to find a way to make sure that our borrowers, especially young people in the very beginning stages of their lives, first learning about loans, how they work, and setting expectations for the rest of their life on what they can expect in terms of the loan process. They need some protections. They need some transparency. We need to make sure that some protection is being afforded. I mean, Destiny's story about so little of her payments going toward her principal is a pretty dramatic example. I can't imagine somebody having a home loan and only having that amount go toward their principal on that loan over the period of time and the course of the payment she made. So it's beginning to have that dialogue to see what we can do to help people in those circumstances and really just, you know, improve the situation that folks are experiencing currently.
Next question is from Trey from the Mankato Free Press. When is the bill being filed and what's the House file and Senate file number?
In the House, the bill will be introduced today. We don't have a bill number until introduction, so I can't give you the House file number just yet, but it will be introductions today.
On the Senate side, same thing. I have the physical copy today. It's getting signatures right now and will be dropped this week. And at that point, we'll have a number for you.
Okay, so Shannon has a follow-up. I had thought that public service loan forgiveness was only through the federal government and that private loan servicers didn't have those programs. Is that not true?
So public service loan forgiveness is a program offered by the federal government. Federal loans that are owned by the federal government are serviced by private companies. And this bill regulates those private companies that are servicing federal loans.
Okay, I don't see any more questions, so I think we can go to closing remarks. Representative Stephenson.
Well, I want to thank Destiny and Sarah for sharing their stories. Thank all of you for being here. And in particular, thank Senator Duckworth for his partnership on this bill. He's just a tremendous advocate for this, and I'm really excited to work with him as we move the bill through the process over the coming weeks.
Is it my turn?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. Well, first off, again, thanks for your partnership and your leadership on this, Zach. And thanks to those that were here to kind of share their experience and their story. This is obviously something that we've heard about for many, many years. We're not going to solve it overnight with one piece of legislation, but what we can do is begin to chip away at it, begin to put students, young people, and the consumers and their protections at the forefront of this process and try to alleviate and solve some of the problems we know are occurring. Slowly but surely, hopefully we can have a more long-lasting impact on this process. I think this is a great place to start. It's the most logical place to start. And really, this is a bill that talks about educating people about their options when it comes to loans and just making sure they have some basic protections so they're not getting taken advantage of. If that's not something that we can't come together in a bipartisan manner about, then I don't know what it is that we can come together on. So, Zach, I really appreciate your help with this.
Looks like we did get one last question, super quick. This is from Ryan Faircloth with the Star Tribune. Say a student loan servicer gets licensed under this legislation, but then pulls this sort of switch up on a borrower, changing their payment plan without their knowledge. The bill shows that the Commerce Commissioner would have the right to revoke their license. But what could the state do to improve this situation for the individual?
Well, you're right that the bill primarily focuses on accountability for the servicers. And so that'd be the first thing that we do is making sure accountability. And the ideal situation is to prevent that from happening in the first place, right? I think the vast majority of businesses in that operate in Minnesota want to follow the law and want to be, good corporate citizens. And if we have clear expectations, I expect that the vast majority will do that and will prevent the situation like what happened to Destiny from happening in the first place. I'm sure that in the situation where that happens, that the Commerce Commissioner and others within state government would work to assist the borrower as well.
So if I may, I'll just add a more like a practical answer to that. I'm a real estate salesperson. I have a license, a broker's license the Commerce Department has authority over. And this very much would be a deterrent mechanism, right? As a real estate agent, someone who's licensed and my authority comes from the Commerce Department, if I know I'm jeopardizing that license by acting in a way that violates my fiduciary duty, then you can be certain I'm at all costs going to try to not do that or make myself aware and others aware that, hey, we can't or we're not allowed to do that. So the whole purpose of that piece is preventing it or deterring it from even happening in the first place.
Great. That concludes our press conference. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.